Marshall County. Let's put a storm track on that, because right now we may not be seeing a whole lot, getting a whole lot of information because it is dark outside. We can't see a lot of what's going on, but we got to take these threats seriously as to what could be happening. Jessica, I'm going to let you read these off so I can grab a drink of water real quick and check and see if I'm getting any updates from any emergency management officers too.
Yeah, so the storms in St. Joe County, Indiana, and down in Marshall County, those are moving relatively quickly, and by just a couple minutes, in 2 minutes in South Bend, it'll be approaching you. Concord at 12:18, 12:20 for Elkhart. Middlebury, this will be pushing in at 12:31, and Clear Spring almost at 12:40 in the morning. So some people have plenty of time to be getting into their safe places. If you're in South Bend, you do not have a lot of time, and I know that there hasn't been any sort of confirmed tornadoes on the ground, which is definitely good, but still, because this is nighttime, if you've been woken up by some tornado sirens, it's not easy for you to be able to look outside and see if there's anything. That's why it's so important for you to take action as immediately as you possibly can be. Get into your safe spot if you're in South Bend. Concord, you have a little bit more time to do so, but because this is nighttime, this is definitely more of a threat if there were to be any sort of tornadoes. But again, there has been no confirmation from the National Weather Service on if there is one, but it's very, very important to take action as quickly as you possibly can. We do have just a small update. The tornado warning for Fulton and Kosciuszko counties is going to be continuing, and the tornado warning for Pulaski will be canceled. Sounds like it might have just been like immediately canceled.
So let's go to that storm in Fulton County, because I'm reading the information for this warning, and it's saying, and I'm going to read this out to you folks, the storm is right now capable of producing tornadoes located along a line extending from south of Argus to Royal Center. So we're talking Fulton County right now, but the main hazards with those storms, a possible tornado, or at least the threat for a tornado, and 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Those are speeds faster than posted speed limits on the Indiana Toll Road, on US 31. So these storms packing a punch right now. They are just getting into Rochester, but likely going to be impacting eastern areas of the county here very soon. Bourbon probably within the next minute. I know that's north of specifically where we are talking about, but it is within the path of that storm. Another spot that we want to highlight in the green, looking in the next, I'd say 10 minutes. Warsaw, this storm heading in your direction, probably going to move in at around 12:21 a.m. And Columbia City, I know that is outside of Michiana and our viewing area. However, if you have friends or family in Columbia City, closer to Fort Wayne, storms will likely be arriving after 12:39. Now, at the moment, we do not have any confirmed reports of any tornadoes. We don't have any confirmed reports of any straight line wind damage, but a lot of that has to do with the nature of what we're dealing with. We've got a line of severe thunderstorms moving through at nighttime. We can't see a lot of what's happening, but when we see these colors on radar right here, that tells us that we've got some gusty winds. You can see radar estimated let me start that over again. Radar estimated wind speeds at 65 miles per hour just southwest of Bourbon. This is the same storm heading in that direction, heading toward Kosciuszko County. It's currently where we have that tornado warning, and whether or not we're talking about a potential tornado or straight line wind damage, both can cause considerable damage to life, to property, and even if anything is not secured outside your house or outside your business, that could be something that we're dealing with. Let's widen the view a little bit, Jessica, and let's put radar back on and highlight other areas that may not be seeing rain right now, but they want to be looking ahead. So right now, we're starting to see that rain in South Bend, some of those storms too, but Elkhart not seeing a whole lot yet. But this is the time, if you have not gone into the basement or your safe spot, this is the time to do so. Same thing for Goshen. I know technically Goshen is outside of that current warning, which goes until 12:30, but with how fast these storms are moving, you'll want to take that time now to get into that safe spot. This is not a time to go outside to see what's happening outside, to see the lightning, to see the scary clouds, because likely in the next 10 to 15 minutes, Elkhart, you folks will be seeing the storms. Middlebury, we've talked about seeing the storms at around 12:30. LaGrange, if these hold together at their current strength and speed, you'll likely be seeing these gusty thunderstorms by 12:45.
Lynette, I just want to butt in really quickly for some small updates.
Okay.
Rochester, Indiana is probably going to be getting very windy. The gust front is moving in. And also, we've heard word that there is almost 10,000 power outages across our area, which is not surprising. I mean, we are talking very gusty winds. And earlier in the day, we were talking about the potential threat for lots of trees to come down, because remember, our ground is very saturated. So with all of the rain coming down and also the really strong winds coming through, that could make it easy for a tree to fall down. So it genuinely is not surprising that we have lots of power outages across our area.
Jessica, I think in this same workspace that I've got the flood watch graphic. And if I don't, we'll just zoom out on radar so we can talk about what we're dealing with. I want to highlight another threat that we're dealing with. It's not necessarily severe weather threat, but a flooding threat. A flood watch is in place for all of Michiana through the night tonight. It technically goes until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. But the reason we're dealing with this is because last week we were dealing with Beryl and what was left of Beryl bringing several inches of rain. And now we're dealing with multiple rounds of thunderstorms, bringing a lot of rain as well. We had one last night. We had some storms this morning, and we've got the storms moving through now. You could see that flash flooding a concern back in Chicago. I would not be surprised for us to see more flash flood warnings issued locally. I believe we do have one across Berrien County. This is one of the first areas that did see severe thunderstorms move through tonight, where they had a lot of heavy rain. But not only are we talking widespread flooding from a whole viewing area standpoint, local rivers are also very high. So if you see a lot of rain with these storms tonight, those water levels could get even higher. All right, let's go put the radar back on there so we can showcase as these storms are moving, we're going to see new folks in the line of sight as these storms move in. So right now, these storms currently sit over St. Joseph County and Marshall County, even in Fulton County, but they are just knocking on the door in Elkhart and Kosciuszko County. You can see the outer edge of that line just on the outer edge of those storms just on the county line, and they are continuing to move at around 50 to 60 miles per hour. So Syracuse going to be looking at those storms, I would say, in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Warsaw likely going to be seeing those storms, I would say, in the next 5 minutes. Elkhart, 5 minutes as well. You probably only have minutes to get inside before things start to get a little gusty for you. All right, let's take a look at those warnings again, because the reason that we are still doing continuous coverage here on WSBT and on Fox right now is because we have tornado warnings. When we have tornado warnings, we stay on the air with you until that threat is over. And even sometimes, even later, for severe thunderstorm warnings, if the winds are extremely strong. The warning that we have right now goes until 12:30, so we approximately have 20 more minutes of dealing with the threat for a potential tornado. At the moment, we do not have any current reports of any tornadoes that moved through our area. Earlier this evening, this same line of showers and storms brought tornadoes across Chicagoland. Parts of Chicago saw tornadoes, even reported tornadoes in northwest Indiana. We're talking Lake and Porter County. Now that they've moved into our area, they have weakened a little bit, but the threat for a brief tornado, a brief funnel cloud, or even broad rotation is still there. There's also a severe thunderstorm warning in place for, I would say, Cass and St. Joseph counties in Michigan until 12:45 in the morning. So, and again, probably another half hour or so. This is not necessarily a threat for tornadoes, but gusty winds, hail, going to be potentially one of those impacts that we'll have to deal with. Let's put radar up on there, Jessica. Again, we're gonna do the same song and dance we've been doing. I want you to highlight where we're likely seeing those strongest winds, specifically now in St. Joseph County, because now we're starting to hear the thunder here in the studio. And I want to highlight who is going to be looking at those gusty winds in the next few minutes while I grab a drink of water.
Yeah, so we are seeing some pretty gusty winds in this general area. I'll go ahead and put a storm tracker on this so that we can get some times out there for you. So Mishawaka, it's probably very windy already at 12:12. 12:23, Elkhart, it'll be getting pretty windy for you. Middlebury around 12:34, 12:35. LaGrange at almost 12:50 at 12:48. And around Sturgis nearing 12:53 in the morning. So these winds, they are pretty gusty. Let's go ahead and see the radar estimate for some of these winds. Near 70 mile an hours of a wind gust just around the Kosciuszko County line. So we're seeing that. We're also seeing wind gust of 54 miles an hour, almost 60 miles an hour. So yeah, these winds, they pack a punch. They can knock trees down, obviously onto power lines. We've already seen several issues with power outages not too long ago, almost 10,000 people without power across our area. So that is definitely a huge issue, of course. So
Jessica, I'm going to butt in because
yes.
we are finally getting some severe weather reports in from the National Weather Service as well as emergency management officials. Let's put radar up on here because I want to showcase what caused the damage. Now, specifically in Marshall County, we're getting reports from the Emergency Management Office that areas in Plymouth, there are several roads with trees and power lines down, US 6 and Oak, State Road 17 and Pretty Lake. Near Adams Street in Plymouth, we're dealing with power outage, or I should say roads with trees and lines down too. And this is the same storm we've been watching. So right now, the outer edge is just outside of Warsaw, but you see Plymouth right here not dealing with a lot of rain right now. But we've talked about it's going to take time for these reports to come in. So knowing what we know about these storms, Warsaw, Claypool, Syracuse, Goshen, Elkhart, you likely will be seeing some of that same storm damage as these storms move into your neck of the woods. Now, they are starting to reach the end of the current tornado warning box. I would not be surprised to see that extended. However, we do have a new severe thunderstorm warning to kind of cover where those storms are going. So right now, it looks like Elkhart County, LaGrange County, and eastern Kosciuszko County dealing with a severe thunderstorm warning. And that goes until 1 a.m. Severe thunderstorms moving northeast at 55 miles per hour, but the main gusts we're watching for 70 mile per hour wind gusts with those storms. Now, additionally, because of the setup that we have, a brief tornado, a brief funnel cloud cannot be ruled out. So these storms, even though it does not have the words tornado warning issued on it, you got to take these storms seriously as they move and approach your neighborhoods. I'm just taking a look, taking a break to see if we've got any other information.
No, that's about the only information that we have. We've got these storms moving relatively quickly. By 12:20, they'll be in Elkhart, around 12:30 in Middlebury, and LaGrange at 12:46. Now, they are continuing the tornado warning for Fulton, Kosciuszko counties, and also in Berrien and Cass, Michigan, also the Elkhart, Kosciuszko, Marshall, St. Joe. So they're keeping that little swath of who's currently under the tornado warning. Now, good news is that the National Weather Service has not confirmed any sort of tornado on the ground, but it's very important to take these seriously, especially since it's nighttime. You can't see anything that could be on the ground or could not be on the ground. So if you are in the path of these storms, remember they're going to be on your doorstep pretty quickly. If you're in Elkhart, Middlebury, LaGrange, you are going to be wanting to find shelter in your safe place, whether that's your basement, whether that's an interior room of your house or in a bathroom, just because of the uncertainty of whether or not there is anything in these storms. It's just best to take those extra precautions since it is nighttime.
Exactly. So let's actually, while we're talking about, Elkhart, for example, we here in Mishawaka, we're hearing the rain, hearing the thunder. Let's zoom in on that part of the storm. We've been focusing a lot on that leading edge, but we can't forget about other areas currently dealing with tornado warnings. We've put on the radar velocity, which shows us potential rotation in this line of storms. Right now, we're not seeing any well-defined couplets or any defined areas of that rotation, but what we are seeing are these bursts of that green and the blue, which indicate some very gusty winds. Now, radar estimated right now in the specific spots that we've put on there, right around 50 to 55. But again, this is just an estimate. These storms have a history of producing 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts, especially as they moved into northwest Indiana. This is also the same line of storms that brought tornadoes across Chicago. There were reports of tornadoes at Chicago O'Hare Airport, even outside of Midway Airport, and a possible tornado in the Chicago Loop itself. So downtown Chicago likely seeing some of those reported tornadoes or even just very broad rotation. Right now, the threat for rotation, not there specifically entering into Elkhart County, but gusty winds. Now let's do the same view, Jessica, but go a little further south, kind of where we're seeing the leading edge of those thunderstorms. The leading edge is where we're going to see those gusty winds. So you can see that right outside of Warsaw, Leesburg. You are not seeing it yet, but if you are in those communities, it is likely going to get very gusty here very quickly. Look at that. Radar estimated 79 mile per hour wind gusts just outside of Leesburg, even 70 mile per hour wind gusts outside of Warsaw. This is the threat that we're dealing with. 70 mile per hour wind gusts can do just as much damage to buildings as a tornado can. So this is a threat that you'll want to take seriously, especially if you're in Kosciuszko County. So North Webster, you still have several minutes before this storm moves in. Same thing in Syracuse, but that threat is there. Warsaw, again, you are not currently seeing those strong winds now, but within minutes. In fact, 12:21. So we're pretty much right now or a minute from now going to be looking at those gusty winds. Syracuse, within 5 minutes, within 10 minutes of North Webster. But I want you to take those numbers, maybe take away 3 minutes from that. And that's probably what we're looking at with how soon those gusts and the impact will be there. This is actually some of the strongest velocity signatures we've seen on radar tonight, Jessica.
Yeah, that is true. We haven't seen on the radar those near 80 mile an hour wind gusts. I mean, our warnings that have been coming through from the National Weather Service have indicated that possibility for 70, 80 mile an hour wind gusts. But when we brought up the radar indication was not showing that, but the threat was definitely still there. Now, one small update, not in relation to these storms, but for some other storms that are happening in our viewing area, is that they are continuing the severe thunderstorm warning for Cass and St. Joe, Michigan. So we can talk about that for just a little bit of time so that, we're not ignoring our friends in Southwest Michigan. They're definitely dealing with a lot of lightning. I mean, look at all that lightning.
I think that's a very good idea. And again, to reiterate, lightning does not make a storm severe, but we know from experience, lightning can cause power outages, lightning can cause fires, lightning can do a whole lot of damage, but it does not make a storm severe. It's still important to talk about. It is still important to mention. And also the fact that the storms that are in Southwest Michigan right now, Jessica, they also have the potential to bring wind gusts of over 60 miles per hour.
Yeah, that was also mentioned in the warning that was issued. Now, there is also another small update. The tornado warning for southern Berrien County has been canceled. We can already see that on our radar right now. So that is good news.
That is very good news.
So let's see here. Let's just bring up the velocity in uh Michigan just to see if there are some strong gusts. Not nearly as strong gusts as what we were seeing to the south. So, but still could contain some pretty gusty winds in some spots. We're talking a wind gust near Cass, maybe around 40 miles an hour. Maybe yeah, around 40 miles an hour. Still, that's pretty gusty, but of course, nothing as strong, as gusty as what we were seeing to the south. But
Right.
still, lots going on.
And these wind gusts, they're doing damage by form of power outages. We mentioned earlier that we've got thousands of customers across our area, even tens of thousands potentially, without power tonight from these storms. Lightning can cause that, the gusty winds can cause that, so that's something that we want to focus on. I think we're doing a good thing, Jessica. Let's widen our view, let's kind of reassess where we're at. Right now, time is 12:22 in the morning. We are still giving you continuous updates because we have tornado warning in place right now for another 10 minutes or so, but the potential is there whether we're talking tornado or gusty winds for our eastern communities for probably the next, I would say, half hour to another 45 minutes as this line pushes through. That tornado warning, as it stands right now, in place for Fulton County, Kosciuszko County, specifically eastern Fulton County and western Kosciuszko County, far eastern Marshall County, far eastern St. Joseph County, western Elkhart County, a small sliver of Cass County, and really that's it for this specific warning. Now again, it's only in effect for another few minutes, but the threat doesn't go away once that tornado warning is allowed to expire. The threat for severe weather continues further east as we've got severe thunderstorm warnings for eastern Kosciuszko County, eastern Elkhart County, and nearly all of LaGrange County, and also St. Joseph County in Michigan. Across our entire area, a tornado watch is in effect until 2 o'clock. But now that we're seeing these storms push from west to east, that tornado threat in our western communities is really falling down. Jessica, let's put radar up on here.
Yeah, we have a small, teeny tiny update of a storm report of wind gusts in Fulton of 71 miles an hour.
Okay, so that's in Fulton County. So
Yes.
it looks like it's just outside of Athens. So 71 miles per hour. We talked about the threat for damaging wind gusts, and Fulton County definitely saw the brunt of those storms just within the last few minutes. Right now, it's Kosciuszko County that's seeing the strongest winds. Just outside of North Webster, looking at wind gusts likely going to be somewhere between 55 and 65 miles per hour. Again, this is radar estimated. What's likely happening on the ground is probably going to be different because the radar here in North Webster, as it expands and scans the sky and goes away from the radar beam, it goes up higher in the as it scans the clouds. So it doesn't get a very good grasping or grasp on what's going on near the surface. So that's all of this information is just something we need to take with a grain of salt. But Syracuse, North Webster, going to be looking at those storms pretty much on your doorstep right now, and then heading further east. If you've got friends or family in Columbia City, closer to Fort Wayne, Kendallville, those storms are going to be nearing there, I would say, in the next within the half hour, especially toward Columbia City and Kendallville.
We have gotten a report from our news director that there are trees down and a tree down on part of a house in Michigan City, widespread power outages.
Okay, so Michigan City, that's in LaPorte County, Indiana. This was one of the earlier spots. This is one of the first reports that we're getting out of LaPorte County for damage. So I know that we're not seeing the storms, the strongest part of the storms, actively moving through LaPorte County, but we knew it was going to take time to get those reports in as to what we were dealing with because these storms are happening at night. You can't see a whole lot of what's going on unless you see it illuminated by the lightning. Now, these storms, again, they are moving out of the current tornado warned area, but they are still packing the potential for severe wind gusts. Syracuse looking at those storms right now. We talked about Columbia City likely at around 12:43. Let's zoom in. We'll keep the idea of doing the storm track, Jessica. I like that idea, but I want to focus on our friends in LaGrange County because since that's on the northern end, we're not getting a good grasp on the exact locations in the county as to where we're going to see those storms. We want to give you folks at home a kind of good grasp, especially with LaGrange being in the middle of the county. Middlebury, you're not seeing a whole lot of rain right now, but I expect your winds to pick up here very shortly as these storms start to make their way into your neck of the woods. So Middlebury, within the next 4 minutes. White Pigeon up in Michigan, you'll be seeing those storms in the next 10 minutes. We talked about LaGrange by about 12:45 or even earlier. And if this line holds together at its current speed and strength, Sturgis going to be looking at these storms at around 12:49 a.m.
We currently don't have any new reports from the National Weather Service. One thing that went into the National Weather Service in Chicago is that a tree was snapped on the campus of Valparaiso University. It looks like it was a small tree, though, but still a report of a tree that was snapped.
And that's something we were talking about. These gusty winds have the threat to topple over those trees, but also because we've had a lot of water, and so our ground is very soft. It's very saturated, so it's not very strong. So maybe you probably only saw, for example, winds of maybe 65 miles per hour. But if the ground is compromised and it's not holding onto those trees very well, that could lead to some of these trees toppling a lot easier than if we had a stretch of dry weather and then allowed for those storms to move in.
We've got another storm report from Kosciuszko of wind gusts at 59 miles an hour. That is the latest update.
Okay, I'm just keeping an eye on what's been going on.
Yeah, there was also a new severe thunderstorm warning issued for Cass in St. Joe in Michigan.
All right, so let's focus on that warning then.
Yeah, 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts is the hazard for that one.
Which can still potentially do a lot of damage by knocking trees over, snapping some of those tree limbs as those storms move through. 60 miles per hour, it's right around the speed that some of you folks and some of us drive on the highways every day. So right now it's looking like probably outside of Three Rivers, Jessica. That's the area that we're most concerned about for broad rotation, but also just those gusty winds. So here's 131, here's Three Rivers, likely seeing those storms very soon, if not already on top of your neighborhood. Let's also put radar back up on there too, because sometimes it's a little difficult to see when we're looking at velocity, this green and this red, to what we're dealing with.
Well, and also it's getting a little bit farther from the radar too, so that makes things a little bit messy.
It does. So it's a lot of what we need in order to see what's going on.
There's also a new report from Kosciuszko County Emergency Management. There is a tree down on North Lake Street in Warsaw, and it's blocking the road, and there's also power out on the east side of Warsaw.
And they were the ones that were dealing with the strongest part of the storm as it's been moving through Kosciuszko County. We talked about Warsaw seeing the brunt of those winds. I would not be surprised if we hear of reports coming out of Syracuse and North Webster here shortly as those storms continue to make their way through Kosciuszko County. But it is good that we are starting to see that tornado threat go away. But that threat for severe weather, widespread wind damage, still going to be there through the night. At least I would expect another, what would you say, Jessica, probably 30 to 45 minutes as these storms continue to push through our eastern communities?
Oh, probably. We are now up to more than 14,000 people in St. Joe, Indiana, LaPorte, Cass, Berrien, and Pulaski counties without power. So lots of power outages.
Yeah, lots of power outages, and we knew power outages would be one of those issues. One good thing to note, this rain, it's all coming with a cold front. It's going to drop those temperatures the next couple of days. So thankfully, the threat for that hot and humid weather not going to be around very long. So if it takes time for power to be restored, that really intense heat not going to be a big issue.
Let's take a little bit of a wider view. Let's put on some of these warnings just so that we can get a big picture. Look at how many of the tornado warnings have expired. We just have the one mainly in Fulton and southwestern Kosciuszko County. So
And that's good. And
that is very good. And also look at the severe thunderstorm warnings that have also expired too. So very good news.
Very
for
good
us.
news. And we're getting reports. I'm checking some of our emails sent to our newsroom, Jessica, and we have a viewer report from Walkerton across US 6 in Walkerton. There is a very large tree across the road. There were a tree limb. The picture that we have is a little difficult to see, but there is definitely tree damage on US 6 in Walkerton right now. It's the same line of storms. I know Walkerton was one of the first areas to see this long line of storms, this severe line of storms, but we knew it was going to take time to get those reports in, those severe weather reports in and updated and pass them along to you folks, because most of you are in bed already at this point. Maybe you're awake joining us because you heard your phone go off or you heard the tornado siren earlier and you're just checking to see what's going on. Do you have any new updates for us, Jessica?
Let me check. National Weather Service lost power for about 20 to 30 seconds in northern Indiana.
Yeah, so let's actually zoom in near Syracuse, because for folks that don't know, the National Weather Service office is located in North Webster, kind of right here where that little circle is south of Syracuse, and they were right where they were seeing the strongest extent of the winds as those storms moved through. You can kind of see what we're dealing with. And another thing interesting, so the radar thing we're looking at right now is velocity. This is showing the wind speeds. The green color is indicating the wind speed going at one direction from the radar. The other color, this orange and red color, is showing the speed of the wind going away from the radar. So it's, in essence, it's using math to determine the wind speed, but we're still seeing highlighted areas of very strong winds as this moves away from the radar in North Webster and the National Weather Service office. But this threat, the good news is it is moving out of Kosciuszko County. That threat is moving out of the county, and lingering only heavy rain going to be the big threat once these gusty winds start to roll out of here.
So we've gotten word in our email inbox that the Oslo Township Fire Department has opened up a shelter for people.
Okay, so that's good news. So if you're hearing that or you didn't hear that the first time, Oslo Township, they will be opening up a shelter for those of you that have any tornado damage or any severe thunderstorm or severe wind damage, or if you just need a place to go if you don't have power. Elkhart County Dispatch said that they are going to keep an eye on damage as the storms continue to roll through, because you can see eastern part of the county still dealing with that. Sounds like we just took a power surge too, but we could hear the thunder. Our graphics kind of went out a little bit. It looks like we're back.
Yeah.
But
also we have a couple of updates.
Okay.
So we've got the severe thunderstorm warning for Cass County, Michigan and St. Joe County, Michigan has been canceled, and also the tornado warning for Fulton and Kosciuszko were also canceled. So I do believe we have no more tornado warnings in our area. We are tornado warning free.
that is good. For the first time in over an hour, we don't have tornado warnings. However, I still want us to stay on the air with you folks as these storms are still moving in our eastern communities, because 65-mile-per-hour wind gusts is nothing to kind of shake at, because these storms are strong. You can see the latest warning flashing. It's not necessarily a new area that has a warning, but just an update to the current warning. Do we have any new updates, Jessica, on why that's been updated?
Just that warning, it's updated. It says the hazard is 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and the possibility for hail around 3/4 of an inch.
Okay. So let's kind of regroup. Since we don't have any tornado warnings, let's regroup and talk about what we have. A line of showers and storms moving through our eastern communities right now. Really the only counties that it has left to impact locally, we're talking St. Joseph County in Michigan